What's happening, everyone? This is Zach Edwards with another episode of the Adventure Box podcast. That's right, we are back. Yes, we were gone for the last 2 days. We meant to do this podcast, but we were in the middle of a huge grant. I mean, this is when it comes to teaching history, they'll never teach it like they used to teach it if we're able to get this grant to create this program. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Because this is high-tech, new age type of material that we're working on. And we're going to bring it to you as soon as we can. So if we get the grant, or when we get the grant, we'll tell you a little bit more. And then as we develop it, we will give you all the information. This is huge because this is actually a 3-year contract if we could prove what we can do within the first 9 months. So again, we'll give you little bits. And those that are listening to this podcast and those who want to try it out, we'll actually give you a beta test version so you can actually get into the game and try it out. Yes, it is technically somewhat a game, and yet at the same time a tool to teach and build history. We'll tell you more about that as we get there. But that's the reason why we were gone, why we didn't produce on Tuesday and Wednesday. So now we're going to catch up. We've got 2 different videos we're going to be doing today that we're going to be releasing today, both on ancient Israel, because today is supposed to be our ancient Israel finale. And the episode right now that we're recording is basically on what we were supposed to be doing on Tuesday. So here we go. Today we're going to be talking about, now this is basically the end of Israel for a long time. But before we get there, last week we talked about King Solomon. Now King Solomon, like we said, there's a lot of people that do not agree that he was actually a person. There are other documents that are starting to come up and artifacts that are coming up in archaeological findings that actually point back to Solomon. So it's up in the air whether it's historical and completely accurate or if there's some sort of recitation of it. But what we do have is we do have the Bible that says it. We do have other scripts that say it from Jewish documentation. But the problem is that when, as I said, in about 700, 800 AD, when the Muslims came into Jerusalem, into Israel, they basically destroyed all records. It's like what we've been saying forever. Every time a new conqueror comes in, he destroys the records of old. Why does he do that? Because he wants control. The best way of controlling a people is to destroy the history, destroy the religion, and everyone will agree with your recitation of history and your creation of religion. So that's the basic idea of what a lot of these conquerors believed in. And man, do we have a lot of conquerors over the next 2 days. Basically, all of today's podcasts that are going to be released, we're going to go through the whole litany of the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, and finally, well, we'll go with the Maccabean revolt, and then Rome. So there's a lot to get to in just 2 episodes, and they're about half hour each, so we got to get right into this. So let's go through when Solomon was, when he died. Now, Solomon died. He was this wise king in Israel, ruled and united Israel as one group. Now, as you remember, there are 12 tribes. There's 12 different families that have all built into thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in each tribe. All of them basically had their own distinct area. But when Solomon was alive, they were all united. Major projects were built, including the first temple of Jerusalem. That was Solomon's temple, based on what he said was the dimensions and everything that were given by God to produce this temple. But before that was also what did they travel around with? You remember the mobile temple? It's called the tabernacle. It's based on the same kind of concept as the tabernacle. But Solomon was actually able to build a full-on temple. What happened though? Let me see. He married outside of Israel. He brought in a lot of other cultures. With these cultures came other gods, and he said, yeah, come on in and worship your gods in here. That didn't exactly make his God happy with him. And so by the time he died, he finally saw the light of what he had done wrong. But it was already past. So the kingdom became very split. the tribes started to break off from each other. They started to move again. Now, Solomon's son, Rehoboam, was born, and he was, before Solomon died, he was prepared to become the king of all of Israel, all 12 tribes. The problem was, now this actually goes to today, and some of the lessons that we have in history today, or civics today, in government today. So Rehoboam was given a choice. He had all these people. Now Solomon had highly taxed all these people, even the lowest the lowest income. Everyone was taxed. And because everyone was taxed, everyone was under this burden of supplying Solomon with all this wealth and everything else in order to grow the kingdom, but also the lavish lifestyle of Solomon. Well, Rehoboam was used to that. So he had a choice. He actually had a meeting with all these people, all the different tribes. They all came together, and Rehoboam was told to lower their taxes to reduce the burden on all the people. So Rehoboam, okay, here's the people. And he says, okay, advisors, what should I do? There's two sets of advisors. There was his father's advisors, those that had been there a long time, had a lot of wisdom, were older. And then there were Rehoboam's advisors who were younger. They didn't have as much experience, but they basically had the dream of what Rehoboam wanted, which was grander and bigger than his father. And so they said, so the older, those with experience said, take off some of the taxes, lower the taxes, take the burden off the people. The people will love you and will be with you always. Well, because that's where they were with Solomon at the very beginning. But then he started to tax them and burden them so much. Rehoboam then went to his younger advisors who said, no, you need to show the fist. You need to show them who's boss. You need to get them in order, raise their taxes if need to be. And so Rehoboam took the advice of his friends, the younger advisors, those that didn't have experience. And what happened? Well, the kingdom split in two. You had Rehoboam, which was actually down in what was called the kingdom of Judah, which was basically the let me actually bring up an image for you to see. Let me get this up. So they were basically split. There was the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel. So these were very distinguished places. They actually cut it off. Now, there are different tribes in each of these. Actually, I've got a better image. Let's go with the next one. This basically shows you which kingdoms were actually in each of those, which tribes were actually in each of those kingdoms. So if you look at now going back, you can see the kingdom of Israel, everything above Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is right here. Now, inside, including Jerusalem, you've got the tribe of Benjamin, you have the tribe of Judah, and Simeon. So, okay, you've got 3 tribes right here, right? No, actually, remember, Judah is half of a tribe. Okay, you also had the Levites. Now, the Levites were the spiritual leaders throughout the kingdom, and they were all over the kingdom, but they sided with Rehoboam in order to keep the kingdom together and keep Jerusalem together, though they were not. They were basically neutral through the whole point. But you had basically 2.5 tribes that were down in kingdom of Judah, and the other 10 tribes, or 9.5 tribes, 10.5 tribes, 2.5 tribes, 9.5 tribes that were up in the Northland. You had everything from Asher to Manasseh. Actually, Manasseh had 2 different areas. And these are, depending on the image that you see, there's a lot of different maps out there. They're all going to be different. I don't actually know which one is exactly right, because the way that it's written, at least in the Bible, doesn't give it full on the best of descriptions. And then there are no real other describers out there. So we don't actually know where the boundaries were for all of these kingdoms. Most likely, they basically merged in certain spots. But Gad, Ephraim, Benjamin, and Reuben. Okay, so you have these 2 kingdoms that have now split. But why did they split? Okay, so again, you have Rehoboam, who is this leader? Now let's go back in time a good amount, into Solomon's reign. So Solomon's reign, ruling over this area, and a man by the name of Jeroboam, who's actually, I can't exactly remember which tribe he's from, but he is in the northern 10 tribes. He's actually run out by Solomon because Solomon saw that he was actually getting power and he was actually getting influence. And so Solomon kicked him out because he wanted Rehoboam to take over. So Jeroboam actually went down to Egypt. And during this time, he actually became favored by the Egyptians to go in and conquer part of Judah. Or part of Israel. So Egypt, for a small, short amount of time, attacks them, takes back the plunders. But during this time, Jeroboam is able to unite the 10 tribes. He unites the 10 tribes to basically break off into what is now, what is called at this point, the northern kingdom of Israel. So the northern kingdom of Israel, the southern kingdom of Judah. Breaking these off. So what does this do? What happens when there becomes division within a country? Well, it allows for others to come in and attack. So the next thing you have is you have the Assyrian conquest. So this is happening, let's just say, this was happening, let's say Solomon died somewhere around 930 BC. Then the division was around 930 BC, because it basically happened within years of it. So somewhere around there, circa around that time. So all happened around 930. Now, during this time, you had the kingdom split. They never really did get back together at this point until about 722. So this is not when they started getting back together. No, this is when the Assyrians came in and started to take over. So what did the Assyrians do? The Assyrians, who? Do you guys know? Okay, so we're going to learn about this in the next bit, but they were basically from Mesopotamia. They came over from, you might have heard, Nineveh, and came in and attacked, let's actually zoom in on this, attacked Judah and a lot of the area around the kingdom of Judah. Sorry, they didn't attack Judah. Judah was spared. They attacked around, including Israel. But what did they do with those people? So let me ask you this. When you take, you take pennies, take a bag, fill it with popcorn, take some pennies, put them in there, mix them around. What happens? Well, you have a bunch of different things in there. But the pennies seem to find their way to one spot, right? They're heavier than the popcorn, less mass, and so they can slide down to the bottom. So they all accumulate to one area. The Assyrians knew this. They knew that even if they brought people in, you would still have those factions, those rebellions that would start up in the kingdom of Judah to fight back against the Assyrians. So what do? They took those people. Actually, this one was supposed to be the right one, but this is the attack. For some reason, I don't have the other one. It's probably later on. But they took those people and they dispersed them throughout the kingdom of the Assyrian Empire. So moving them around. So what happens if you take that bag and you go like this? Poof! You rip it open. The popcorn goes flying, but so do the pennies. How likely is it for those pennies to find each other in order to rebel against them and take back their land? Nearly impossible. So Assyria, the Assyrian army, took them and dispersed the people throughout the land, all over. So the top 10 tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel were now dispersed. For some reason, and in a secular view, we don't know why the Assyrians did not go into the kingdom of Judah, but they were stopped. They stopped before the kingdom of Judah. They did not take over Jerusalem. They basically stopped there and they went back. One other thing that was interesting is when this all happened, Jeroboam, he wanted to appease the 10 tribes. Now the 10 tribes were actually worshiping idols, basically because Solomon allowed people to come in from other walks of the world and basically share their knowledge. And because they were able to share their knowledge, it includes their idols and their idol worship. And so all of a sudden, the northern 10 tribes, the northern kingdom of Israel, became wicked. And this is from the more religious side of it. This is what the Bible states of it. So there's different aspects. The kingdom of Judah supposedly stayed with God and kicked out a lot of those things that Solomon had allowed in, which is why they gained favor in their God. So, kingdom of Judah, now dispersed. What's the next thing that happened? Let's see if I actually have it in here. Wow, my pictures did not get saved. Okay. What's the next thing that happened? Okay, the next thing that happened was you now have the Babylonians that came in. Sorry, my throat. Okay, so you have the Babylonians that decide to come in and, well, actually, you know what? Before I mention that, this is also where the Bible talks about the lost 10 tribes, the lost tribes of Israel. Lost because they've been dispersed throughout the Assyrian kingdom. Now, did they go further? Probably. They probably separated themselves into small groups that could actually find each other, but nothing to create an army. They were more like families and groups that could get together and continue their faith, because that's going to come back, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But now let's go into, so we get the lost 10 tribes all throughout the Assyrian kingdom. Now, you also have Babylon that comes in and conquers now the southern kingdom of Judah. Why don't they conquer the kingdom of Israel? Well, because the kingdom of Israel is no more. And people have been dispersed. New people have been brought in. That's right. They actually did bring people into that area in order to continue to disperse the people that were still there, that the Assyrian army did not move out. So now the Babylonians are in there. The Babylonians take the people of the kingdom of Judah, especially the leaders, the craftsmen, things like that, people like that, and they bring them back over to Babylon to live with them. So this is a point where the kingdom is, again, still very separated. The kingdom is very divided. I mean, you have kingdom of Israel has basically been destroyed. The kingdom of Judah still has its people there, but it's been very divided. Well, interesting enough, the first wave of Babylon comes in. They don't touch Jerusalem. They don't touch they take over Jerusalem, but they don't destroy the temple. The people start rebelling. They didn't learn the same things as the Assyrians learned to disperse the people to stop all rebellion. So they allowed a lot of the people to stay in Israel, or in Judah, the kingdom of Judah. So they got together, created an army, and started to rebel against the Babylonians. The Babylonians weren't very happy with that. So again, they sent their people back in and destroyed, wiped out Solomon's temple. They looted it and they dispersed it. And so because of that, there was a stop in the rebellion, but that's also when they took more people and dispersed it throughout Babylon, throughout the kingdom of Babylon, but not just the kingdom of Babylon, the actual city of Babylon. And so, yes, and this is around 595. The first attack was around the late 700th century, so late 600 BC, 600 and something BC. Now, the fall of Nineveh happened around 612 BC, and then that's when because the Babylonians were taking over, they were spreading out, they stopped paying attention too much to the kingdom of Judah, they rebelled. This is the second rebellion, or the first rebellion against Babylon. And in 597 BC is when they actually came back in through King Nebuchadnezzar II and attacked Judah, destroyed the temple, and such. This is when they deported the kings, the noblemen, the skilled workers, brought them back to become the puppets of the king. So this is the final rebellion and the siege of Jerusalem between 597 BC to about 589, maybe 586 BC. This is when Babylon comes in. It takes them about 2 years to destroy it. And yeah, so the rebellion, I guess, started in 597. The actual final rebellion and the siege on Jerusalem didn't happen until 589 to 586 BC. So at this point, they destroy Jerusalem, they destroy the temple, and the people are left in squander. So the Jews are being exiled to other places. Those that are left over have to scrounge for anything that they can find to survive. But something is about to change. We're not going to be talking about this until the next episode. So we're actually going to be posting that today, as I said. But what are some of the things that we can actually learn about this? So, kingdoms. Here's an interesting thing. How hard, let's just look at the map. Let me bring up the map of Israel and Judah. Okay. I'm going to bring up the map. Bring up a Google map. Bring it over so you can see it in here. And let's take a picture of the Middle East, or the Near East, as some like to call it. So let's zoom out of my area. Keep going back. There we go. And let's go over to Israel area, the Middle East. So the Assyrians came from around this area, part of Mesopotamia, which is about this area. So they came over and conquered the kingdom of Israel and dispersed all the people. Babylon became powerful, took over after the Assyrians, came over here and attacked the kingdom of Judah and left the people. Rebellion started over like 50, 60, 70 years. Then finally Babylon's like, wait, what are we doing? Let's go in and destroy them. So they came in and destroyed the city. If they hadn't rebelled, the city probably would have stood. But who knows? Again, we don't know the mind of Nebuchadnezzar or any of his predecessors. So then what happened? Well, what happens when all of a sudden you have this very large kingdom? Again, my maps didn't show up. I didn't, for some reason, didn't save them right. So you have a very large kingdom. That's Babylon, basically. And then all of a sudden, you have, let's go back. Before we get to what happens all of a sudden, what happens when there is, let's say, 100 different tribes, 100 different groups in this area? Well, if there's 100 different groups, then the Assyrians, let's say, have to conquer every single one of them. And then what happens when Babylon comes in and takes over some of the areas and then takes over Assyria? Well, it takes over everything in Assyria. Everything that Assyria owns is now Babylon's. So they get all that, plus any lands that they pick up that were not taken over by the Assyrians. So their area of influence has actually increased in size. So who are the next ones? Next ones are the Persians. The Persians come from the area near Iran. So you have Iran right here, who come in, take over Babylon, which means taking over everything that was taken over by Babylon. So the Assyrian Empire, the Babylonian Empire, mixed together, merged together. Now plus the Persian Empire. So this thing's getting pretty darn big. They have oppressed all of the little kingdoms all throughout. Now, every time a new kingdom came in and took over the small ones that were independent of that other empire, they only had to take over the big empire, and then the small ones, they were easy to fall afterwards. And so they'd be adding on to the space, oppressing all the people within your empire, so that as you attack the empire, you all of a sudden have all those lands, and you only have to attack one place, the empire, where their strongholds are. So if it's the Assyrians, you attack Nineveh, destroy it, Babylonians take over. If you're the Babylonians, the Persians need to go in and attack Persia, or to attack Babylon, and they take over everything. Now they do have armies that are still out there. You take over their capital, you cut off the head, the rest of the snake dies. So then you have the Persians that come in, which we'll talk about next time. The Persians come in, and the Greeks, via using Alexander the Great, come in, take over Persia, and he basically owns everything that the Persians had. So this is like almost easy pickings if you can kill that one army, destroy that one army, take over that one capital. Same thing goes with Egypt. Egypt used the same ideas. Though their area was smaller because they only took over small parts. And then when the Assyrians came over, or when other groups came over, they'd take that part to add it to their group. So you had the Greeks after that. And then finally, who'd you have after that? Who's the one group, the big group, the one that we always talk about in ancient history? That's right, you have the Romans. And the Romans will be the next to take over this area. But we're going to get into that next time. Thanks so much for joining us on this Adventure Box podcast. It was great to see you again. Sorry we weren't there Tuesday and Wednesday, but now you're going to get Tuesdays and Thursdays all today, and Wednesday you'll get tomorrow. So thanks so much for joining us. We will catch you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye. If you have any comments or questions, add them to the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow, actually. Take care. Bye.